But thank you for having me. Thanks for the introduction. A little bit about me. Listening to your sharing brought back a lot of memories. I mean, my kids are 18 and 15 now. There's a lot of things I've forgotten. But recently, Summer was making, my daughter's name Summer. Summer was making her like video, 15 minutes, no, not 15 minutes, 15 seconds of fame for her graduation. And she was like digging through all these old files and old videos, and I was like, oh wow, she was that little before. I forgot like how I dealt with that. But just listening to you, and thanks for being so transparent and so open and honest about sharing your experience with me, and that would help me kind of see where the flow of this workshop goes. And I want to be as helpful as possible. And if you ever taken the Myers-Briggs assessment, I'm an ESFP, which means that my attention span is everywhere. And so if I see a bird, I'm like, oh, there's a bird. And so what helps me best when I speak is if you ask questions. So at any point in my talk, you feel like, oh, I don't get that, or I have a question, just raise your hand, or just say, hey, Kevin, I have a question. I'm going to stop my talk, answer your question, and then we can go. Okay, so that's how I do best. And so feel free to ask any questions at any time. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Taiwan. I was born and raised in Taiwan. And then I came to the States when I was 14. Experienced and then this is why I'm telling you this story. I came here in '89, lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. The first one that I was here, that's when the earthquake happened, '89 earthquake. I lived through that, and I was like 14, sitting in my living room, waiting to like watch the World Series, and then went back to my bedroom to kind of grab something before the game started. And I still have this vivid memory of sitting on my desk, and the ground starts shaking, and I'm like, I'm from Taiwan, I've lived through earthquakes before. And then it starts shaking more and more, I'm like, oh no! And I didn't know whether I need to duck under the table, we weren't taught, and things start falling off my bookshelf. I'm like, I'm trying to save it. and then last week, right, there was a big Taiwan earthquake. Yeah, I was there. So our whole family were there, and we just got up. And in our hotel room, it's 6th floor, and it started shaking. I was like, this is not the '89 earthquake, is it? And then it started shaking more and more, and then it just so reminded me of that '89 earthquake. But my daughter said it was a highlight of her trip, and because you can't like I heard people travel to like Texas too, and Illinois to chase or watch the eclipse. Did any of you guys fly to Texas or anything? Like it was a big deal. Like a lot of my clients like drove 10 hours, 14 hours to go to Texas to see the eclipse. They said it's the most amazing thing they've ever seen. But so we're lucky we get to experience an earthquake, but we can't go chase one. Anyway, so I studied at Cupertino High, and then I decided that I wanted to, I don't know, for some reason God implanted this thought in me. I just thought, like, I don't want to stay in California forever. I just want to go do something different. I want to start new with a fresh group of friends. And my parents didn't live with me. Well, they never lived with me. Well, I did live with them until I immigrated to the U.S. at age 14, and I lived with my grandparents and my aunt. And so my parents were never here. They're in Taiwan, and now they live in China. And so I was like kind of free to go anywhere. And so I went to University of Illinois at Champaign, and that's where my wife lived. Study environmental civil engineering. I didn't know what I was doing. I just thought I needed to be an engineer. But my daughter can tell you that you're like the worst engineer ever. Why did you even study that? And I was even stubborn enough to beg my way back to Davis, and I got into a UC Davis master program, and then finished my engineering degree as a master in civil engineering. And that was by the grace of God. And then started my work, yeah. And then about 4 or 5 years into it, I was like, I really want to be an engineer for the rest of my life. And then I felt called to be a pastor at the time, was part of a church plan. And then quit my job, went back to school again, and then got another degree, which I don't use anymore. and then became a pastor for a long time. And it's when I was a pastor, I had my first kid. So I was interning at a church, and then I was taking seminary classes, and then I was an engineering person, so I didn't know how to write paper, and so I had to relearn all that while having the first kid, and then doing part-time school, and then part-time-ish doing church stuff, and then at one point I was about to like quit school. I was like, I can't do this. Like those of you that have like little kids, you know, I have a friend that used to tell me, I was like, I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. Like, what about the me time, right? The only me time you have is when you go to the bathroom by yourself. Like, okay, just let me have my me time for 5 minutes, right? And so he told me, and it was just wise words at the moment. He said, hey, Kevin, we're in this caveman years. Oh, not caveman years. So one day we will come out of the cave. But right now we're in the cave. But one day you will come out of the cave and you'll be free. And I thought, wow, I don't know what that one day will be like. And then I was doing seminary, and then I almost quit. I talked to my professor and I said, I don't know if I can do this. And then he encouraged me. He said, do the most minimum work you can and just get through seminary, because if you delay it, it's going to be worse. And so I vowed to like finish my degree before I had my second kid, and by God's grace, I was writing my last paper, and that's when my second kid came out of the womb. His name is Max. And then we were kind of like just parenting them, and now they're like 18 and 15. I can't believe like they got out of the cave fast. I didn't think it was that fast. And I was thinking back to all, and then now we're in this like college. Like how many of you worry about like kids college? Okay, so maybe some not yet. Like I didn't know I have to worry about kids college. I feel I have to worry about it. And then now we're in that college stage, trying to figure out like where she goes and all that stuff. And so I'd like to ask you this first question. Because I didn't know they were going to be here, so I So this was just a couple of weeks ago. We're in Hong Kong. It was a really memorable trip. We get to visit. My wife's from Hong Kong, and so we get to visit her, like the places she grew up, the house that she lived in, and the middle school and everything. This was a picture at the Victoria Harbour. Yeah. So that's my son now. All right. So I'd like to ask you this question first. Like, what is your parenting goal? Have you ever thought about it? What is your parenting goal? Like, because it's common for all of us that, you know, whether you were going to school, you had a goal, right? The goal was to get the degree, no matter what it takes. Right? When you're at work, you have a goal, or you have a career aspiration, or you have a career goal. Or if you didn't have a goal, your boss will tell you what your goal is, right? Or your manager or your supervisor will tell you, hey, your goal at the end of the day is to give me that document or finish this project. Right? So we all have a goal. But what about parenting? Right? Do you have a parenting goal? What is your parenting goal? Because if we don't have a parenting goal, we kind of drift. And here's a metaphor, here's an example. How many of you have ever been to a grocery store without a grocery list? How many of you? So when you go to the grocery store with the grocery list, what happens? You buy things on the list and then you're out, right? You may occasionally like browse here and there what's on sale and then grab a couple of more things, but mostly you stick with the list and then you leave, right? What happens when you go to a grocery store or a shopping mall without the list? What happens? You kind of get things you didn't think you would get, right? And then you kind of stuff and then you're like, you go home, you're like, wow, how did I spend that much money getting all these things? Well, eventually you'll eat all of them, so it's not a big deal. But parenting, if you don't have a parenting goal, you basically are going into a grocery store without a shopping list. You're basically like, hey, what do you do here? Hey, how do I do screen time? Hey, how do I shut down technology? Hey, how do I talk to the teenagers? You're just grabbing skills, but you don't really have a direction of where you go. So, and if you don't have a direction of where you go, then how do you know the skill or the things that people share with you, like me, is useful for how you parent your kid? Right? Because there's really isn't, there's not a verse or there's not an instruction with God that says, hey, you have to parent this way, right? Or you have to do this, right? I remember the most scary thing about having a kid is when my daughter Summer's born, right? And then you're like, the nurse takes care of everything, right? And then after a couple hours or a day, they go, here you go. And then you're like, wait, you don't get to go home with us? Right? Like, no, you're on your own. Like, and then you take this kid home and there's no instruction menu, right? And so one thing I strongly encourage you, if not advise you or ask you to do, is to think about your parenting goal. Like your parenting goal could be different from mine, and that's okay. But as long as you know what your parenting goal is, then you know what you need to achieve that. Right? So if you were training to run a marathon, it would be completely different if you were training to run a 100-meter dash. Right? You would think. I never read it, but you would think if you run a marathon, your training will be complete. So, what is your parenting goal? Next. So usually, you probably heard this, but just an overview. There's usually like 3 types of parents. One is called next one. One is called the helicopter parent. Have you heard that term, helicopter parent? I heard there's a new term now called the snow plowing parent. Yeah. So helicopter parent is like you always hover around your kid, right? And then you like, oh, are you falling down? Oh, don't eat that. Like, oh, and then you're always hovering, you're always making decisions for them. And then recently I heard there's a new term called snow plowing parent, where I can't imagine this really happened, but I've heard it's real. Is that parents will call, like if the kid is graduated and looking for a job, the parent will call the interviewer and say, hey, like, are you interviewing my kid? And then some parent will even sit in the interview with them. And then they would snowplow anything that's coming their kids' way. It's even worse than helicopter parent. So you and I don't want to be helicopter parent, I don't think, right? But inadvertently, if you don't have a goal, you become a helicopter parent because that's what comes natural, right? That's what your parent did for you. That's the natural parent instinct, right? Are you heard? Like, have you, like, kids? I don't know why our Chinese culture always like, have you eaten yet? Like, did you eat enough? Like, please finish the food. Like, what's the big deal about finishing the food? I don't know, but please finish the food because my parents have always told me to finish my food. So I'm telling you, you have to finish the food. So drill sergeant parent, right? So some of us have experienced that, like maybe your dad usually, right? It's like, this is my way or the highway, right? Gotta do what I tell you to do. Why, Dad? There's no why, because I said so. Right? So that's the drill sergeant parent. You don't want to be that. I hope you're not that. And then so when we're doing this, this is something I read from a book a couple months ago. It's called How to Raise an Adult. It's written by this previous Stanford professor. And she said that this is what we do these days. Is we tend to overprotect, and then we overdirect, and then we handhold our kids, right? And that's what, and no wonder kids grow up not knowing what to do or what their passion is or how to make the right decision. It's whose fault is it? It's ours, because we overprotect, like, you gotta study this, you gotta eat this, you gotta go to this school so that you can get this job, and so that you can be financially secure, and then we overdirect, like, no, don't take this class, you gotta take this class, and all that. And so I hope we don't be that. And there's a way not to be that. So there's a third category, and people call it, and I call it consulting parent. Is you know what a consultant does? is that you present them a problem, right? And then they see what's going on and they make a recommendation. But you get to decide whether you want to take that consulting advice or not. Right? So you go, nah, I don't really want to listen to it. Or, oh yeah, that actually makes sense. And, oh, yes, I forgot my story. So I've been a pastor for a long time. And then one thing that really bugs me when I was a pastor was when people come to me and say, oh, Kevin, you know, my family or my kid or all that. And don't tell other people that I said this, but I've always want to say, like, nobody made you marry him, so you made the decision. So what's the question here? But they always ask me this, like, oh, I have these problems with my husband or with my wife and then with my kids. And then I would genuinely want to say, here's what I would do, or here's the advice that I would. Here's the advice that I would like to give. And then they would go, thank you, Pastor, and all that. Can you pray for me? And of course I will. And then I found out, and then I kind of observed, and then the advice that I give doesn't stick. It's just like, you've experienced that with your kids, right? You tell them something, they go, yeah, and then 2 days later, you tell them again, they go, yeah, and then, right? And you're like, and then I was really like puzzled. And I was like, so is my advice not good enough? Or is it the wrong kind of advice? Until and then a few years ago, I stepped down from my position of being a local church pastor and then morphed into this coaching thing. And so I took a coaching class, and I realized the reason why my advice didn't stick was because the solutions of a problem needs to come from the person himself or herself in order for it to stick. Like, people don't listen to your advice. They need to own their solution. So then when I learned coaching, I was like, wow, this is great. So all you do is ask them questions. Not all you do. You need to ask the right question so that they begin to think, and then they would come up with a solution, and then you just suggest to them, why don't you go try that? And then they would go try it because they came up with the solution. That's one mistake. So I will share a little bit with that. So what is your parenting? You can just leave it on this page. So what is your parenting goal? And I'll just share a little bit about my parenting goal. And of course, there was a pastor I really admire, and there's some of the things that he said that I echo, and so I kind of copied some of his, and then I created some of my own as well. Yes.
The consultant parent, that's something. Out of those three, you recommend?
Yes, that's a really good question. Consulting parent is what you want to get to at the end, right? When they become like adults, when they are teenager adults, right? Of course, when they're 2-3-year-old, you don't go, right? Okay, now I'll talk about the 2-3-year-old, right? And let me table that. So I'm going to talk about the control consequences. At the end, you want to get to where you're not overly direct, you're not telling them what's right or wrong, but they would want to hear what you want to say, right? Have that good relationship. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
For now.
I think that's where I'm transitioning from. Like, when my kids were small, I'm more of a helicopter drill sergeant. But maybe transitions more.
Even when they're small, there's a way to do it, and I'll share it. All right. So my parenting goal, I didn't write that down, so you don't have to copy mine, but I'll just tell you my parenting goal, and then I'll tell you all the things that I kind of did with Winnie together, based on my parenting goal. Okay, so that's just my experience. Not my experience. My parenting way is not the best way or the only way. It's just the way I know best. Okay. So my parenting goal one is, they will have a relationship with God that's not based on my relationship with God. That's one of my goals. They will have a relationship with God that is not based on our relationship with God. And another one is they will want to come home and hang out with us even when they don't need to. Okay, when they're old and grown and flown, they will want to come back and hang out with us, even when they don't want to, or even though when they don't need to. And then they will have a great relationship with each other. For those of you that's like more than one kid, like my parent was like, hey, I wish Summer and Max will get along, and they will have a great relationship. And then last but not least is they will make wise decisions at critical junctures. Like they will have the wisdom, or God will supply them the wisdom to make the right decision at critical juncture. And that's it. I don't care if they're rich or pretty, fat, thin, tall, those doesn't matter. Those are the 4 things. And so things that we would do based on our parenting goal, and that comes back to your question, is when our kids were in preschool, we were really fortunate to be introduced to a training called Love and Logic, Parenting with Love and Logic. I don't know, has anyone heard of Parenting with Love and Logic? Okay. You have?
Yeah, my cousins in Portland, they really used it with their 3-year-old that was like a really feisty girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, they told me it helped them a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for those of you that have younger kids, or even older kids, you can use it. Look it up, Parenting with Love and Logic. There is a book. You can read the book. Or you can just Google Parenting with Love and Logic. They've got a lot of like YouTube videos and seminars and things. But basically, and then if you ever have a chance to go to the workshop, I would highly recommend it. It's really, really fun, and it was a great learning experience. So Parenting with Love and Logic, basically it's love is the empathy part, and then logic is the consequence part. Okay, so even when they're in 2 and 3, you've got to teach, we have to teach our kids, and this is something that was rewired into my brain because we grew up with no instructions, right? So our parents would say, hey, don't eat this, or don't do this, right? Kind of the drill sergeant in the helicopter. Until we were introduced to this, I was like, wow, this is amazing. So, because our goal is you want your kids when they become adult to make the right decisions, right? But how are they going to transform from being helicopter to that? It's just too big of a leap. And so you've got to train them when they're little. And so this book helped us figure that out. And it's you parent them with love, which means that your kids need to know you love them no matter what. I know you know, but do your kids know that you love them no matter what? Right? I know you know, but what are you going to do to let them know that my dad or my mom have my back no matter what I do? Okay, that's the love part. And then the logic, the consequence part is you've got to try to find a way to let the world's consequences teach them early, so that they know, oh, if I make a bad decision, that's the consequences I'm going to suffer. Okay, that's the love and logic part. And so the first thing we were taught was you have to learn this phrase called, uh-oh. All right, say it with me. Uh-oh. Right? So when your 2-year-old or 3-year-old or even 1-year-old does something that is like, they purposely hit the cup and the water runs over or whatever, right? And they giggle, right? And then what does normal Chinese parent do? Like, what are you doing? Like, why is the water running over? Right? And then, right, I did that, right? And so that's why it's funny, and because we all do that. And but then we learn, like, no, you don't do that. You go, uh-oh. And that thing is not just to help your kid, but it's to help you. Because what's the hardest about parenting is the emotion. Right? You're like, right? So the oh is actually helping you, not your kid. It's the oh. It helps you to kind of rein in your emotion, because here's what your human brain is developed, right? Your emotion is in the front. So whenever you interact or encounter something, it hits your emotion first. So you overreact, because. But if you can learn the phrase uh-oh it gives you that 5 seconds or 10 seconds for the information to go from your emotion part of your brain to the logic part of your brain. Then you go, okay, well, how am I going to deal with this water knocked over, right? So you, uh-oh. And then the next phrase we learned was, what are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do? Because when you go to work, you messed up. Your boss is not going to say, hey, how did you mess up? Let me do it for you, right? Your boss is going to say, what happened? What are you going to do? Right? And then also your boss is not going to count to 3. Okay? Like, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm going to count to 3. Don't do that. Your boss is not going to count to 3. So why are we counting to 3? When we count to 3, our kids think that's how the world works. When I grow and do something or about to make a mistake, my teacher or my boss is going to count to 3. No. They're going to fire you on the spot. They're not going to count to 3. So you got to teach them at a very young age, that's not how the world, you got to teach them that's how the world works. You make a mistake, you pay for the consequence. So you go, uh-oh, what are you going to do? And then you eventually have to kind of teach them to clean up the mess themselves. And of course, it's not going to be perfect like the way you want your kitchen to be, right? So you got to let that go. But let them, and then they learn, oh, if I make a mistake, I got to pay for it. Right? So that's how you start. And then I've heard like really fun example. I've never done it myself like that. But I've heard, like when I went to a workshop, I've heard fun example like, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to school, right? I don't want to go to school. And then it's like, and then we parents go, oh, you have to hurry up. You got to dress up. We're late. Like we gotta go, right? And I've heard example like the parents just let them. Just go, okay, you don't want to dress up? We're gonna go to school naked. Let's go. And then they take them to school like with just like something, and then they feel embarrassed. They're like, oh no. Then what happened? They get dressed the next day by themselves. They don't want to go to school naked. But you gotta let the consequence teach them at a very young age. And so that's something that we've learned, and I don't remember all the examples, but you're smart. So you can get a book, or you can think about like, hey, if something happened, how am I gonna let? Oh, and I have to say this. You have to teach them under controlled consequences. Okay, so based on their age. So don't go, I don't care if you cross the street or not and get hit by the car. That's the end, right? So you gotta teach them you gotta have controlled consequences based on their age. Right? So, and then another common thing that kids fuss about is when they go to Walmart or Target, like, I gotta buy a toy, right? I gotta buy a toy, and I don't know if you encountered that. And they teach you how to do that. Like, you tell your kid, hey, we're gonna go shopping, and we're not gonna buy anything, and then if they fuss, you have to have a plan. You have to plan. Like, so sometimes parents, like, how do I say that in English? They cooperate like behind the scene. They go, hey, if something, I'm gonna leave Target, and then I'm gonna leave, and then my kid just like fuss over there, but you come and rescue them. So making think like, oh no, I'm causing a fuss, and then mom said, well, we've already said if you make a fuss, then mom's gonna leave, and then you'll have to call a friend to come save you. But you work behind the scene that you have a friend who will come save you. So it's like controlled consequences where you teach your kids. But then you don't sarcastically do that. You do that out of love, because you love them, and that's what they need to know. They need to know, like, hey, even when I mess up, my parents are there. So you go, uh-oh, and then they go, what are you going to do? And then if they say, I don't know. Then you go, well, here are my suggestions. You can clean up by yourself, or you can have mom help you clean up, and I can teach you how to clean up so next time. And then you let them choose. And so, that's another thing about love and logic is you create choices for them since a very young age, so that they know how to make choices. And you create these choices, and you think this is silly. Like, for example, if they don't like to tie their shoes, right? Or they don't want to wear their shoes. And then what do we transfer to? Where is she? Like, where is she? Like, why are you like? But instead, you can say, hey, do you want to put on the left shoe first or the right shoe first? And then they feel like they have a choice. And when people feel like they have a choice, they feel empowered. And when they feel empowered, they will go do the thing. And they go, watch. I mean, you think it's really silly? Watch, go try it. Next time when they fuss, you just go, hey, you want to put on the right shoe first or you want to put on the left shoe first? And you watch like the kid go, I want to put my left shoe first. And then they do. And then there's no power struggle. And so, from early, so I highly recommend that. And, all right, so here's some of the things that, are you guys still doing okay? Do we need to take a break? Okay, all right. Okay, here are some of the things I do based on my goal. We became really aware of what we say to our kids. And of course we make mistakes, right? Just any human being. We're simple human beings. We all slip up and make mistakes. But we intentionally decide what we say to our kids. Right? Mom, your words weighs 100 pounds. But dad, your words weigh 200 pounds on your kid. So be really intentional about what you say, right? And the fact that we didn't mean it that way is irrelevant. Because if I accidentally hit you with a car, I still hit you with a car, even though it's an accident. So be really intentional about what you say. So for example, I see some parents do this, and I decided on a very early days, I don't make fun of my kids. I just don't. I don't say, in front of my friends, I don't say, 你看他，就是这样啊，胖啊, I don't say those things. I don't say, oh, look at him. And I've seen other parents do that, and I cringe. And I go, do you know that, like, it hurts your kids when you do that? And so I don't intentionally make fun of them, and I don't use sarcasm with my kids. I don't manipulate them into doing something I want by being sarcastic. And so I'd be really intentional with what I want to say. So your intentionality will replace your natural. Again, back to the parenting goal. If you don't intentionally decide what you're going to say, your natural will come. So decide early on, or even today, decide what your children needs to hear. What do they need to hear? And then say it more than they think they need to hear. One really, I guess, key thing, and this is kind of typical, but not everybody, but typically, boys want to hear that they can make it, or they can do it. So dad and mom, you need to give your son the confidence that they can accomplish this. Boys want to know that. I am good enough to do this. And girls wants to be made special. And so moms and dads, tell your daughter how special they are in any way you can. Especially when, so usually they get a good grade or something, don't just say, oh great, you got an A. You can even ask them, hey, how did you got that A? And that goes to the powerful question that I've learned. How did you get that A? How hard did you work? What did you have to do to get an A? Be interested in their life. Make your daughter feel special. Because if you don't make your daughter feel special, some boys will make her feel special. And then you'll lose her quicker than you think. Right? Go ahead. All right, schedule and time. Especially when they're little, and we still do that now that they're 18 and 15. And some of us are very busy. We have like busy working hours, and some of us, parents work, both of us work, right? But we know you love them in your heart, but you have to love them on your schedule. So schedule time on just regular time. What time do you spend with your kids? And what do you do with them? the equation is small deposit over a long period of time makes a whole world of difference. Years ago, I was introduced to, I should have brought a jar. So imagine I have a jar of marbles, and we're really counting the marbles, and the years goes by really fast. It's like you feel like you have a whole jar of marbles, and each day you're counting it, kind of like, my son is only 2, like, how long does this take? But when your kids are little, it's like the saying. I don't know if you heard a saying called, the days are long, but the years are short. Like the days are long, the years are short. So small deposit over a long period of time makes a difference. So one of the things that we are adamant about in our family is dinner time. Like we take dinner time really seriously, or at least I do. And so we make sure the 4 of us, as much as possible, eat together regularly, almost every day. I know some family, when they reach their teenage years, like they just take. I know some family, they put food on the table and then you just come and eat whatever. Especially, I got sports, or I got tutoring, or I got symphony, whatever. But we try to make an effort that we're gonna come to the dinner table together and eat together almost every day. So decide what's important for your family. What tradition do you want to uphold, and why do you want to uphold that tradition? What makes that tradition important for you? Okay, so we're gonna get to the discipline thing. All right, so this is oftentimes a topic that most parents will ask, like, hey, how do you discipline your kids? All right, well, most of us parents, like, we have this fear, right? We fear that our kids won't like us. But just remember, they may not like you now, but they will like you a lot later. And later is longer. So I'm not going to give you methods to discipline your kid, but instead I'm just going to give you a principle of why I discipline my kids. First, decide, what do you discipline? For me, it would be dishonesty, disrespect, and perhaps disobedience, and because if someone lies about something, it basically breaks the relationship between you and that person. So recall the story of Garden of Eden. So you all remember that story, right? When God came looking for Adam, and God asked him a question, what did Adam say? What did Adam say? He said, are you guys all, are we in the same, like, religion? You guys all everywhere. All right, what did Adam say? Adam said, the woman you gave me, right? The woman you gave me told me to eat this. No, he decided to do it, but he said, no, okay, backtrack. When God came looking for him, God said, where are you? What did they say? They said, we're afraid because we're naked. Right? But that's a lie. They're afraid because they ate the forbidden fruit. Right? And then God came and then you keep reading it, it's like God tries. Yes, God needs to discipline them, or they need to pay for the consequences, but God's heart was to help them, or to try to mend the relationship. If you read those verses, you see that God is all about mending the relationship. So when you discipline your kids, it's about they did something to break the relationship between you and your kids. So you gotta find a way to mend the relationship. That's why you discipline. Okay? So one thing, okay. All right, so so another thing that you learn besides the is another phrase called, oh no. Oh no, right? When you say oh no, that puts you on their side. Right? They sell you something and then you go, oh no. Then you immediately put yourself on their side. Then they know you're all about the relationship. You're not all about the problem or the chaos that they cause. And you kind of let yourself kind of feel their pain. Then they know that you're on their side. So learn not to. Okay, another thing that we didn't do is we don't threaten them. We don't threaten our kids. We don't say, if you don't do this, you're not going to. If you don't, right? Or I don't create that much of a reward system either. Like my son one time came home and say, hey, Dad, so and so parents will give him $10 for every A that he gets. So what do I get? And you get A's. That's what you get, right? Because your boss is not going to pay you $10 for every A you get, right? No, I didn't say that to him, but that's what I thought, right? So I said, you get A's, right? It's like, oh, and so I don't reward. Because they're not doing it for me. I don't want them to think I did this so that I'm only doing this to please my parents. And so I decided that I'm not going to reward them with grades because I don't think that's healthy for me. But you can do what you want based on your parents. Right? And so I don't threaten my kids. I encourage them. Oh, and then Max at a very, very young age when he was like little baby kind of 2, 3. And I don't even remember this, but I have it in my notes. So I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. So he used to say huggy, huggy, and then we'll just kind of all hug in and hug each other. And I remember like, wow, kids is all about relationship. That's all they want to know. They want to know if mom and dad love them. And so Max has taught us at a very early age that hugging each other is a way to kind of mend relationship. And then talking about discipline. A lot of times we discipline based on just cause. Like I hear people go, so you're grounded. I don't know how many people use grounding. Or stand at the corner. Or I'm gonna take your screen time away. Or like, oh, if you don't do this, I'm gonna take it. Like, let's say, okay, your job is to take the trash out every Thursday. And then if you don't take the trash out, I'm gonna take your iPad away. Something like that. Right? We will all think of something to punish them. But that doesn't do any good, does it? So I learned this is we've got to discipline them based on the thing that they missed. So you've got to discipline to repair the thing that they messed up, not just to ground them or take the screen time away, because that doesn't do anything. Go ahead.
So probably before your generation, Kevin Lehman used to talk about the reality discipline, he called it.
Yeah.
Where the discipline needs to be based on what they're doing.
Yes.
So if they're not going to eat what they're supposed to, you don't say anything, make a big deal. They just don't happen to be one of the people at the table that gets dessert.
Yeah.
And figure it out.
Yeah. So you got to discipline based on the thing. So I had an example. I heard a pastor say this years ago. I was like, wow, this example was really, really vivid. And he was giving, so for example, he was giving the story about, so his 2 kids, he had 2 sons, and then one day he and his wife just went on a date or a trip somewhere, or went on a date, I think it was date night or something like that. And then they came home, and then the babysitter told them that the 2 kids were being really disrespectful to the babysitter, and just really, really bad. And so the pastor and his wife, they were really, really mad. But they learned what they call the delayed discipline. So you don't punish on the spot because your emotion is just so like outraged. And so they go, we need to think about how to punish you two. And but let us think about it for a week. Oh, that's another thing. Another thing to let your kids feel the consequences is tell them you think about how you want to punish them. They'll be like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? Right? That's another thing. Like, you're not doing it to make them fearful. It's just you really can't think of anything. But the side effect is they're actually more fearful of you when you do that. So that's an added bonus when you can just tell them like, I'm so angry right now that I need to think about it. Because if I punish you right now, it would be too hard. But I need to think about it. And so they said that to their two sons, and they said, "Oh, we'll think about how to punish you. You've been really, really disrespectful to the babysitter." And so but we've got to discipline them based on, the penalty, or based on the thing that they did wrong. So what are we going to do? Are we going to ground them? No, ground them doesn't do anything. Are we going to, what are we going to do? They finally decided this is what they're going to do. So after a week or a few days of thinking through, the mom goes to the two sons and goes, Pastor White one this and like, oh, Dad and I have figured out how to punish you two, or how to discipline you two based on your disrespect to the babysitter. And remember, discipline is always about mending relationship, and that's what God is all about. And so they said, we're gonna ask you to use your own allowance to go to a supermarket or flower shop, buy some flowers using your own money, and I'm gonna drive you to the babysitter's office, and you two are gonna walk in there, hand her the flowers, and give her a apology card or say you're sorry in front of everybody, in front of everyone in the office. And the two kids were freaking out. Like, no, that's so embarrassing, Mom. Like, how can you do this to us? Like, well, you disrespected her, and you've broken the relationship between you and the babysitter. So the only way to repair it is to apologize. And so we're going to do this. And so they forced these two boys. I can imagine, these two boys going, getting flowers, and then they're like, they're 7 and 9, and then they have to go to the office and then hand the flowers and then say that they're sorry, and that's a memory that they will never. And they said from that point on, they have not respect any babysitter since. And so it's something. So when I heard that, I was like, wow. And then somebody over here, I think, said, when one thing great and challenging about being a parent is you've got to level up, right? For those of us who play video games, you always have to level up. You always have to be 1 step, 2 steps ahead of your kid, and because your kid will make you. And that's the fun thing about being a parent, because you've got to always level up and be 1 or 2 level up. And so if they challenge you, just go study, go level up. Go, yeah, I'm going to take this branding challenge. And so think about the things that you have a hard time with your kid. Think about how am I going to discipline them that would kind of mend the relationship, whether it's a broken relationship between you and them, or a broken relationship between them and somebody else, instead of just the regular hey, I'm going to take your screen time, or I'm not going to let you talk to your friends or something like that. Because they got to feel what the consequence is. Then they go, right? Okay. And then, another thing I do, and see, I'm pretty open, right? See, I let my daughter sit here so that she can testify things I actually think about. So sometimes in the heat of the moment, right, I will make mistakes. And, my temper, my emotions will grab hold of me, right, and I'll say the wrong thing. So I've learned to apologize to my kids at a very, very young age. Even when they're 5 or 6, I would tell them that, hey, yesterday I yelled at you. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. And then I would apologize to them. And then they would forgive them. They will forgive me, and they would say, oh, that's okay. And so I learned to be human in front of them, and I don't pretend. And then when they hit their teenage years, that's the fun part begins. So here's the thing about being a parent of a teenager. A lot of parents, before they turn teenagers, a lot of parents have told me, or I've heard, that teenage years are going to be headaches, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be, and then you always hear, and then you always see parents roll their eye, go, oh, my kid's a teenager, right? And then I thought to myself, why does my story have to be like that? Why does my story have to be like, oh, I got teenagers? Why can't my story be like, oh, I got teenagers, they're great, right? Like, why do I have to accept the fact that just because they're teenagers, I'm going to have a tough time being a parent? So, Winnie and I did some research, and we found out that to ride easy in their teenage years, you've got to really pay attention to their junior high years. That's the key. That's the key. The key, because I've heard somebody said, like when they're little, it's easy, and then they slowly become like adult, but they're not quite adult. That's when it becomes hard. And the one age group or phrase or days of time that oftentimes we neglect the most is the junior high years, the 7th to 8th grade. You'll see there's not a lot of books or research done on this particular like 10 to 12. Everybody talks about the teenager, how to talk to a teenager, how to deal with it. Everybody talks about what to do with toddlers and elementary. It's this junior high kids, that's the key. And then when he found out, like, you've got to really parent well in that 7th, 8th grade. If you parent well in that 7th, 8th grade, you're gonna feel easy during the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. And the reason why the 7th, 8th grade is hard, it's because that's when their physical things begin changing. And they're feeling weird. And they don't know that they are feeling weird. So they kind of act out based on they're going through all these biological things. So I've heard, like, if you do some research, you know that their limbs tends to be a little bit longer, and then their head becomes bigger, and they're not proportional. So they're kind of awkward walking around. Not like Frankenstein, but it is true. Like they're beginning to feel, and then girls have their thing, right? And so you've got to pay attention to that junior high years, and then just be with them, be with them, accept them, listen to them, be interested in them, then be invested in them, because that's the time that we neglect, because we feel like, oh wow, we got through the elementary school days, now we're free, now they're finally junior high, they can be their own thing, and then we take our reins, not that we're helicopter parents, but some of us are, but we take our reins, and then they grow too fast, and then we missed it. And then we try to parent back when they're a teenager. It's a little bit too late, but of course, it's never too late in God's eyes. Anything is redeemable. But if you're parents of kids that are before junior high, congratulations, you heard me say that, so you still have time. But if you're like, oh shoot, I passed that, don't worry, you can still get them back. But watch out for those junior high years.
Can anyone give me some hints on how to be a good parent to a junior high? Because that's where I'm at right now. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I just need some examples.
All right, give us a specific question.
So she is. There's a lot of power struggles in the house now. She wants to do what she wants to do, and then, we got rules in our house, and she's starting to challenge that. She's got friends that we talk to at school. We don't know all her friends. We know some of her friends. So we're trying to figure out who her closest friends are and what their backgrounds are like.
Okay.
And then she's definitely got her opinions. So
Okay.
some of them, not the same as ours. So.
Okay. All right. So here's some things that we do at our home. Is I don't have a lot of rules. Like we don't have a lot of rules because, and this is just my way of parenting. I'm not saying my way is the only way, but I'm just explaining what I do. We don't have a lot of rules because rules tends to be pushed and to the boundary. Like people, like if you say, hey, you gotta get home at 10 o'clock. So it's 9:59 technically okay? Is 10:01 okay? Right? So we don't try to create a lot of rules at our home. We just try to instill in our kids the principle of how we want to live. And then we just have a dialogue. Okay, so for example, if what I would do is I might ask my kids, like, hey, what makes you, oh, and another thing I've learned is don't use the word why. Because, and if you speak in Chinese, you have to think of a way to not use the word why. Because why tends to put the person in defensive. Like, why are you doing that? Or why are you hanging out with that friend, right? But instead ask the question, what? What makes you want to hang out with them? What makes you want to hang out with them? I think there's something that I would want to encourage you to think about is what are some of the non-negotiables for you and why are they non-negotiables? Because obviously my son and my daughter will not be the same with me. Like they won't think the same, they won't look the same, they won't decide the same. And God created all of us, God created every one of us unique, right? And God doesn't dictate us on how you want to decide, how are you going to decide your life. But what are some non-negotiables for you for your household? And why are they non-negotiables? And then this is what we do at home is we try our best to create an atmosphere of dialogue. So one thing we do, if you have teenagers or preteens, one thing you need to learn to do is don't freak out. That's the one thing you need to learn. Like if they come home and tell you something like, oh, me and my friends, you can't say, oh no! Like you just pretend, you just go, wow, that's bad, right? But you go, oh, that's interesting. And then you let them talk. And then you can go freak out in your bedroom with your wife. And go, wow, can you believe that she did that? Right? But you gotta learn, don't freak out in front of the kids. Because once you freak out, they shut down. They won't tell you anything anymore. So you gotta like hold it together. You gotta hold it together. No matter what they say. Like, oh, me and my friend, we tried like, now marijuana is like what, legal now, right? Like let's say one day they come home and go, me and my friends had some marijuana. That was kind of cool. Right? As much as you want to freak out, as much as I want to, you go, oh, that's interesting. Like, and then get into the dialogue with them. Hopefully it doesn't get there. Get in a dialogue. Learn about them. And one thing I have my note here is be curious and not judgmental. Be curious. Take the posture of curiosity. Be curious about your son or your daughter's wishes or decision. What makes them tick? What makes them want to make that decision? What makes them, for example, what makes them want to power struggle with you? What's the reason? What's the root cause? Right? And then learn how to ask, and then like I said, learn how to ask questions. Ask the what question. Hey, what makes you whatever. Oh, and then one thing about love and logic is we've learned another phrase is dad is too tired to argue with you. From a little kid. Dad is too tired to argue with you. So if dad spends all his energy arguing with you, then dad doesn't have time later to play with you. Something like that. And so they learn. And so, ask them. So what if they tell you something, you just say, oh, really? And then be interested in their life, even though you know it's wrong, even though you think it's wrong. Yeah.
For Morris's question, I just wanted to jump in also. How about eighth and ninth? ninth grader. You know, so there's ups and downs. So the best advice I've received and read about is just always have them involved in activities. And when my daughters, when she was in volleyball and soccer, you know, she's too tired for drama or arguing. She's super busy. But now that she's out of the sport, you know, there's more problems. And then my son, when he was in cross country, you know,
Yeah.
he's just too tired to.
Yeah.
But once he's out, so I'm trying to work with the school to try to get them, you know, like when they're out of the sport or out of the activity, find something else.
Yes.
So I've gone through ups and downs, but there's definitely better results when they're invested in activity. But the challenge for me is, all right, when the season's done, what can they do now?
Okay, that's a really good point. That's a good point. So instead of just asking like what other thing can they do, you could ask yourself, what things can I do with them now that they're not doing sports? Then you inject yourself in their life, right? What can I do with them then? Now that this is my time now. What can I do with them together? And then so you not only build a relationship with them, but you also occupy their time. So they don't have time to think. Great enough. Yes.
So going along with that and adding the idea about creating dialogue is being able to build those better times with them. I don't want every conversation to be tension.
Yeah.
So, you know, learn to, you know, if she plays some silly girl dress-up game on her phone, load it on yours and play with her, you know? And here's the key is learn to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Or if you like to work in the garden, invite her to join you. You can't push her to, but if you can do some stuff where she likes just me and dad time that's relaxed, because she wants to get rid of the pressure.
Daddy-daughter date night or something like that.
Yeah, I never thought date ideas worked for our family. It might be your kids. But something where you've got that relaxed time with them.
Stronger bonds and relationship.
Yeah.
Because I don't want every conversation to be tension, because the next time something comes up, whether it's big or
It's
little,
getting to that
it's
point
automatically in
where
fight
it seems to
mode.
be like that. You know, you're talking to her, there's always a point of conflict, and then you know, what's for dinner? You know, burritos. No, I want burritos.
Yeah.
You know,
That's a good point. Like I try my best to find some kind of common bond or common activity with my daughter and my son. Like I play video games with my son, and sometimes my wife would complain that you play more than he does. I'm really into it. And then someone loves to sing, and then I used to lead worship, so we kind of bond a little bit over music a little bit. Although she's like, no, you never listen to music. But find something. I mean, I'm sure there's something, right, that you could do with your kid. Find something.
You've got to be creative, and
Yeah.
part of it is the test is a little bit, are you comfortable just hanging out together being quiet?
Yeah.
And if you can sit with a child that age, even if you're not doing the same thing, but like across the table from each other, 30 seconds of quiet, and you're both comfortable, you're probably doing pretty good.
Yeah, on that thought, we can also learn to be invested in something we don't do usually. Like I hate gardening. I hate it. But my son likes it. And so anytime he wants to do gardening, I'm like, oh, do we really have to? And then, but I have to invest in his world. Then he would feel like, you know, I'm not just spending time with dad on the thing dad likes, but we're spending time together on the thing I like. So I've got to learn to like, I don't have to like it, but I just have to do it with it. So do that with your world. Like, hey, what's the big deal if you don't like that thing? Learn to like it. And if you don't know, right? Sometimes our kids make fun of us, right? They go, you don't understand, or you don't do this. Especially us, like grew up in Asia, maybe our English is not as good and stuff, right? They make fun of you, and then who cares? I get make fun of by my kids all the time. I take things seriously, but I don't take myself too seriously. So she would always say like, oh, that's not how you pronounce the word. And you know how it works, but that's not how you pronounce it. I was like, oh yeah, oh, well. And then she'll teach me. And then I go, okay, how do you pronounce it? And then I just learn from her. And so it's just something that we'll try to learn as parents, and just don't take ourselves too seriously. And then we don't always have the answers. Sometimes I tell them, I said, I don't have all the answers, so we figure it out, or you figure it out, and you teach me. And I would, especially on history, like my son knows a lot about history, so I would ask him, hey, what's this about? And then she'll tell me. They're like, oh, Dad, you don't know. And I go, no, I don't know, because I didn't grow up with an age where there's internet. Like we have to go pick up a big encyclopedia, open it, like. Yeah, so I just try to find ways to connect with your kids. I had a client one time. So I'm doing coaching. I had a client come one time and say, I'm having a hard time with my kid. I go, okay, what's the hard time? He goes, he's always on his app doing these NBA things. And he's taking so much time doing these NBA videos, and he's editing these videos and all that. He's not studying, and he's skipping dinner and all that. And then I said, so what do you wish for? And he said, I wish to have a relationship with my son. I go, okay. So what about learning about what he does? And he never thought about it. He just thought that's a waste of time. He should be either studying or having dinner with us or doing what our family likes. He never thought to ask his son, hey, why are you so interested in making these NBA videos? Until I coached him and I said, why don't you go ask your son? And then he did. And then now he and his son have a great relationship. Because his son found out that, oh wow, Dad is interested in my videos? I can't believe that. Oh, let me tell you about it. And then he said when I asked him, he told me that when I asked him, he went on and we talked for an hour about how to build these videos. And then all the discipline thing and all the argument went away. They just started bonding. And so sometimes it's just a little bit spark can help.
I guess for me, when the kids aren't in structured activities, I can use it as an opportunity to get into their lives until they get back into a structured activity.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last two. And then, wow, I went long. Okay. Yes.
我可以说中文吗？
可以。
我的女儿她就是现在很敏感，很
sensitive。
对，她好像很追求完美的感觉。你就她会来问你，我今天穿的好看吗？然后很好看啊，很好。他就说，因为我是你生的，所以你说我这个很好。就是好像有时候就是如果他问我我会说他对的一点，他有时候就是觉得好像我没有说那个，
没有说真话。
对，没有说真话。其实我是说的是很想就是 positive 的那个感觉。他会质疑，然后他会说，因为你是我妈妈，所以你这样说。然后他也很希望得到朋友，就是同龄人的那种肯定感。他会有那个肯定的，因为我们刚刚到这边没有太长时间，大概差不多1年不到的时间。所以他在学校里的时候，他很想交朋友。那个他不知道 friends 这个怎么来定义，我不知道这边是不是有很大的那个差异。因为在大陆就是 friend 就是同班同学，classmate 就是 friend， 这个是好像就是肯定是 friend， 因为老师说大家都是同学就是朋友。但这边如果你去问同学是不是我们是不是朋友，他对，不然，然后他就 confused， 他说他不想跟我做朋友，他是不是对我觉得有意见啊？我不够好啊，或者是他就自己OK。我在想他对自己的要求是很追求完美的，所以我怎么样去可以让他提高他的自信，然后去就是去说他去适应那个朋友，不是说所有的人都可以成为他的朋友，他对朋友这个也特别的对的，然后也很
Do we need to translate this?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, so the questions are twofold. I think one is when my daughter comes and asks me, like let's say she put on a nice dress, she'll ask me, what do you think, Mom? And then I would say, I would say, oh, it looks pretty, and then she would say, she was kind of sensitive, and so she would say, of course you would say it's pretty because you're my mom. So she wants like, I guess concrete acceptance or support. And then another one was because in China they're in the same class. Whoever's in the same class are automatically friends. But in the U.S. right now, the study system is you go to different classes, right? So she's not used to like how to define friends. So she doesn't kind of know how to help her navigate that. Yeah.
So I have a good thought about that. I mean, I do not have teenagers or middle school. We have a 6-year-old, but he's also very sensitive. So he would draw these drawings and then he would show it to me and be like, "Do you like it?" And of course, I love it. I love everything. So I used to just say, "Oh my gosh, it's lovely, 好漂亮."
Yeah.
And then he'll be like, "Okay, well, like, really?" And then he'll be like, "Should I show it to my teacher? Really? Is it really good? I don't know. You're my mom." So he would also say that, "You're my mom. Of course you like it." So then I had to get creative, I feel like, and then come up with very concrete things I like. So I would say things like, "Oh, I love it. This is a gladiator. Didn't you just read this book about gladiators last week? I can't believe you remembered what a gladiator shield looked like." Like little tiny things like that. Instead of just saying, "Oh, the colors are beautiful," which is what I used to say. Like I would say, like, "I love the rainbow, so I love it." So finding like very specific things really helped him, and then he would very confidently take it and show it to his friends.
Yeah.
So
That's an excellent answer. Is to find when your kids ask you what do you like about it, tell them specifically what you like about it.
you get really
就
creative.
具体的告诉他说
Yeah.
为什么你觉得这件衣服穿起来很漂亮。Yeah, so just because they want it, because that's you too, right? If you ask your husband, hey, this dress. You don't want him to just say, oh yeah, it's pretty. Right? You also want him to tell you what specifically makes you pretty, right?
But also bonus points is if you can get into their little trends, right? So my son is not into Pokemon, but he wanted to impress one of his friends, so he drew a picture of a Pokemon. And he didn't know that I was secretly kind of studying up on the Pokemon names a little bit. Because I know that's what all his friends talk about. He is the outsider. He's not in with that cool crowd of Pokemon.
Yeah.
So when he drew this picture, I said, "Oh my gosh, is that an urban forest or whatever?" I had memorized his name. And he was so impressed with me that I knew his name. So if you could, get into the trend and say, "Oh, I love those shoes," this is so in style right now because of the heel or like the strap. It's so like Mary Jane shoes with the one strap. That's so cool. I feel like your daughter would love it.
Yeah, and then on the friendship thing, I think, I don't know, if I were you, I would say, I would just try to let them feel that I also feel their pain. Like, oh, understand this is a different country, different culture. I don't have the answer either, but we'll figure out together. Or we'll pray together about this. And then you can tell me every day or time to time, hey, how you figure out, we'll figure this out. Yeah. And then let them know you're on their side, even though you might not have the answer. All right, very quickly. So two other topics, just faith and family. Like, okay, we used to do bedtime prayers, we don't do that anymore. They're older now. And now, actually, my kids actually like to pray more than I do, which is great. And I try to make faith really real. I tell them how faith impacts my life, and then my struggle. And I try to always put like a human element into the faith instead of like making everything spiritual, if you know what I mean. So I would, like, for example, I would ask them to pray for me. I would say, hey, I'm making this decision, or I'm about to, at the very end, would you pray for Dad about this? And then so kind of make that as part of the routine for them. And then my wife does this, which is great, is she always pays attention to their hearts. It's what's bothering them. And if anyone's hurting their feelings, or if they're mad at anybody, that's something important for us to kind of pay attention to. Yeah, so create any, if you like to read the Bible together as a family, that's great. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. But try to make faith as real as possible instead of just going to church or going to youth group or say a magic prayer. Make it real, like not tell them directly, but make them feel like, it's not, God doesn't always come through by the way we pray. And that's part of the faith as well, learning what God wants. And then last but not least is the best gift you can give your kids if you're married is to give them a really healthy marriage model. That's the best gift you can give your kids. Because this is something funny that I think about sometimes, is that not you guys, other Chinese parents, like, you gotta go to Berkeley, you gotta go to Stanford, you gotta go, and then you spend all your energy and time trying to build them up academically, and then all of a sudden they are about to graduate from college, and then you go, when are you going to get married? And then you give them no training between, like, and I'm all in the battle, like, wow, how do these parents expect their kids to just get married? Because all you focus on was academic, right? And then parents begin to worry, like, 什么时候有男朋友啊，什么时候有女朋友 and so you've got to give them that healthy, give them that healthy marriage, healthy relation, what that looks like, so that they have the confidence that one day I want to get married. Well, let's say if you want to get kids married, there's no right or wrong, by the way. And then try, and then I need to do a better job of this. Show affection in front of them, like hold your wife's hands, or kiss your wife in front of you. And my kid will be like, oh no. But show affection that this is normal. And then there's something that I've learned to do at the earlier ages. I don't let my kids sit in front of my wife's room. I don't do that. A lot of parents do that, I know. I don't do that. I tell them that that's mommy's seat. You guys sit in the back. Okay? This is mommy and daddy's seat. You guys sit in the back. You guys are important. But mommy's important, so mommy gets to sit in front. You don't get to sit in front. And so show them that your marriage is the most important thing, and not just their wants and wishes. Right? And so, next slide, please.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, that's right. So I love this quote. Is in the beginning I asked you, like, what is your parenting goal? Right? What is your parenting goal? So just like your GPS. Like, if you want to go to, what's a good location here? If you want to go to the capital, right, you've got to set your GPS to the capital. Right? So direction determines your destination, right? Not intention. I know you want to be a good parent. Like, I want to go to the capital. I want to go to the capital. But if you set your direction going to the Ark, or you set your direction going to the airport, you're not going to reach the capital. So remember, your good intentions are great, but they won't get you to where you want. It's the intentional things that you do every single day. Your direction determines your destination. So at the end of the day, I just want our kids to think this. Oh yes, I do have one. Right? At the end of the day, I just want our kids to think this. Like, hey, I'm not sure what my parents were doing, or if they even know what they were doing, but I always knew that they loved each other, loved me, and loved Jesus. That's it. That's my end goal. That I can die happy, going to heaven. Hopefully, get there. Yeah. So I encourage you to think about your parenting goal. Think about why you have that goal. What makes that important? And then what are the steps you need to take in order to reach that goal? Right? So I'm in this college days. So easy example, if you want your kid to go to UC Berkeley, you've got to create a roadmap to get to UC Berkeley, right? You can't just like, by chance, I don't care what they do. They might end up there. But if you want your kids to go there, you will intentionally create a roadmap. So the same thing with your parenting. If you want to parent a certain way, you've gotta think about how to get there. Alright. I have those 2 questions from you. Do I need to answer them, or I'll take any questions? And thanks for, I didn't even do that the first time. Thanks for being here. Do you guys have any questions?
So, it goes in 2 ways because our kids live under so much pressure now that we didn't have, and how do we help them? Now, on a more personal level, I find out I'm adding pressure to them that I didn't mean to. So, like, it seems like their grades are more important than the fact that I love them or something.
What was your question?
So how do we help them with pressure?
Pressure.
Peer pressure, everything, the social media stuff, the pressure to perform, and to understand that the love and the relationship is more important. And sometimes that goes with that, I unintentionally add some of that pressure. Right? You know, the kid comes home with 5 A's, and you ask, why did you get an A- in this one? Just overcoming some of it. How do we help them do that?
Summer, do you want to answer that?
Pressure. Oh wow. Okay.
I'll let my daughter answer that because I don't know what I did to help her.
I think like academic pressure is really strong in Davis because you know you have everybody taking all these AP classes and you feel like if you aren't on their level then you're not going to be the same caliber, the same friend group. But I think that it's really important for the kids, or for me, it was really important to figure out what did I value and what was important for me. Because I knew that I wanted to be an intelligent person, but I didn't want to let those grades define my intelligence. And so I knew that like even though maybe I get a B+ on something, but that doesn't mean that I'm not smart still. So it's really important for your kids to know that all outside factors don't determine inside feelings. Like, however people perceive the way you look, however people perceive the way you think is not really themselves. So you strive for your own values or God's values or the values that you created at home, not the values of other people. And so if you are secure in your own values, then you won't really think about what other people think. That was what was important.
So coming back to what you were saying earlier, our kids need to know we love them regardless.
Yeah, I think it's still. I mean, I grew up in an Asian culture, right? So I feel it. I mean, I still struggle with it. Like for now, like we're deciding between 2-3 colleges right now, and we struggle. Like at least I struggle. Like do we go to like a so-called like well-known college, or do we go to or does she go to a college that fits her the best, regardless of what the name is, right? And that's a real struggle for me, because even though my parents really didn't push me to go to like whatever famous school, but it was in me to go to like I gotta go to the best engineering school, whatever. And so I think I love what some of you said, like this. It's really challenging myself as well. It's not just like why do I feel the certain way that I feel, and why am I exerting that pressure on them, and then really like I think one thing that helps me is the constant reflect about my own way of parenting or my own self. I think that helps. Like the more aware you are about yourself and your values, the better you will parent. Because sometimes we just do what our parents did naturally. But if you just take the time to like even once a week or once a month even, to kind of like give yourself a couple hours to think like, why do I do the things I do? And then be able to answer that, and I think that would give you a lot of answers. Yeah, like for example, my one big struggle of mine is, do my kids need to know how to speak Chinese? That's a big struggle, because I've always been taught, right? 为什么你的孩子不讲中文？然后为什么他们不会讲中文？他们只会讲英文？他们是美国人吗？blah blah blah whatever, right? And then so this ingrained in me like, oh, will my parents think that I'm not a good parent if I don't teach them Chinese growing up? And then the pressure of like all my friends' kids are going to Chinese school, my kids are not going to Chinese school, like are they going to miss like? And then I have to ask myself, why is this Chinese tradition so important to me? Why? And I couldn't answer that because I'm a Christian. And I thought, you know what? In God's kingdom, yeah, even though we created different culture, what ultimately matters is the kingdom culture, not my Chinese culture. Yes, I love for my kids to be able to speak Chinese so that they have, I always tell these people that don't want to speak Chinese, I said, you gotta learn Chinese because then your girlfriend or boyfriend prospect is bigger. Your networking is bigger. Okay, if you only know how to speak English, I mean, I'm sorry, you limit yourself. You gotta learn Chinese so you can date more girls. And that's how I encourage them. And they never thought of it that way. They go, oh wow. Yeah, I was like, yeah, hey, yeah, you're welcome. And so I thought to myself, like, hey, what? And so it comes back to my parenting goal. Like, my parenting goal is like, I want my kids to have a good relationship with it. I don't want to have that power struggle. So there's a lot of things I kind of just let go. I just go, you know what? I'm not going to force them to speak Chinese if they don't want to. And I'm not going to force them because I grew up in Taiwan and I learned Chinese doesn't mean they have to. They might regret it. They might blame me and go, how come you didn't force us to learn Chinese? Now it's too late. Like my son now goes, how come you didn't force me to learn Chinese? I wish I could like learn. We went to Taiwan, like I wish I can speak more. I go, oh wow, now you think. Like, so I tend to be a more lenient parent. Like I don't force a lot of my stuff on them, because I always ask myself like, why? There's no right or wrong. There really isn't. Who cares if there's ABCs and they can't speak Chinese? And right, who cares if they eventually married a white guy or a black guy? Right? Those things are real. Those are things that we talk about in seminary. Like you're gonna really feel it. Like, oh, my son's gonna marry like, right? Those are your value. But is that value really? Is that value like? Is there a right or wrong? Or is it just a personal preference? And if it's a personal preference, parents, I suggest you let it go. If it's only a personal preference, and you gotta let it go. You gotta let your kid be who God wants them to be. Because God allowed you to be who you want to be. So why not allow them? So yeah, but it's still a struggle. The struggle is real. It's not because I reconcile in my head and go, you know what, I don't care if they learn Chinese or not. Every once in a while I struggle like, oh, I wish they know more. Because then, you know, then they can find a better job. All these things, right? But I always ask myself, like, why am I insisting on this? Is this really a non-negotiable? Why is it a non-negotiable? That's the question I always ask.
我会有几个问题。
Yeah.
一个问题就是我刚才和我说我儿子那个用很多时间的那个 screen 玩儿，然后因为他们学校学校都给小朋友会用这个工作，就在学校里边会用，然后回家也会用。但是他回家的时候我还没下班，所以只要我一回家，他就在家里就会在这个 screen 上工作。所以说有时候他说我有作业，是有时候老师会布置成写 IP 啊或什么东西，但是呢，有时候我觉得他可能会是来玩他的一些其他的玩手或者山东。其实我儿子倒不是说看瞎了，我是看这很多 YouTube 上面 science 这些东西，但是这个时间呢，确实是我就无法控制他。
OK。
因为有时候不在家嘛。你说现在我来听这个，他在家里不会去玩，而且现在他正在学习自我学习，就是听 video， you know， 就想 I want to be the YouTuber， you know， 对。
Yeah. Okay. So, do we need to translate that?
Yes.
Okay. So, what what to do with screen time.
Okay.
Like what to do with screen time.
Right, watch this.
So here's my answer about screen time. I don't know. Because I don't think, because what you want your kid is be able to make decisions on their own when they're an adult, right? So the first question I would ask myself is, why is less screen time better? Okay, that's the first question I will ask. Why is less screen time better? Okay? Huh?
Everybody else says so.
Oh, right. But is it okay? So, but you got to decide. Why do you think that? I'm not saying more screen time is better. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you have to first decide why less screen time is better. Better for what? And then you'll know what to do. So one thing is, instead of limiting the screen time, create other interests. You've got to create other interests for your kids so that they are invested in the interest so that they don't want to do this. Like, so one thing that we struggled was during COVID. I had a parent call me and say, Kevin, like they're on Fortnite all day. What are we gonna do? Do you guys know Fortnite? It's a video game. And I'm like, I know Max is on Fortnite all day too. And then what do we do? And I thought to myself, and I asked Max, I was like, hey, why do you play Fortnite a lot? And I thought that was probably quite cool. I'm watching him play. And I asked him, and he said, because that's the only time I get to talk to my friends. And I watched him. He wasn't just playing Fortnite. He was like asking them, hey, how's your day? Like, hey, what did you do? Like, and then they're talking. And then I decided, you know what? This is COVID. It's going to be a phase. Once COVID is over, the screen time thing will end. I decided. I'm guessing at the time because I don't know how long COVID will take, right? I'm guessing like, okay, this is just going to be a phase. He needs to have the social time with his friends. I'm just not going to limit it. And then so he just plays like 6 hours a day, something like that, or 5 hours. And then now he doesn't play that much anymore, because his thing was he wants to hang out with his friends. That was the only way. And so you got to figure out why less time is good for you. Why is less screen time is important for you? Create interest. Find ways to help your son or daughter to create other interests. And then also invest in their world. Ask them, why is this so fascinating? What are you watching? Can I watch together with you? And then they will go, oh, and then they slowly will spend time with you instead of going to the street. Or something like that. So don't think rules, think creating interest, think creating stories. What stories do you want to tell your son or your daughter? What story do you want them to tell? Think that. Don't think limitation. Because they will grow out of it. They will eventually grow out of it. Hopefully.
And my son is very interested in the Minecraft. He even wants to teach me.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated to do this. I don't want it yet. And also, I don't ask them his words how to play this. To me, it's not my interesting part. But as a mom, for me, it's really hard to accompany my son because my husband is a businessman. He usually fly back and forth with China and America and Finland, the three countries. My son is less of with his daddy. So that's a big challenge for me as a mom. During the pandemic, I even to learn how to skateboard with my son. To reduce the time to spend on the screen time. But now
you have to work.
He was stay at home to do Minecraft.
Yeah, so think of ways to encourage him to say, hey, why don't we play Minecraft for a couple hours and then we go to, or you go to Yeah. And then hopefully it's just a phase that they will grow out. All right, I realize it's 5 o'clock. So I want to be respectful of your time. Any other last question or anything? Okay. So shall we pray, and then I'll pray, and then we'll go. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time and this opportunity to spend with all the parents. And we just pray that, Lord, that you give us a big heart. Give us wisdom so that we know what to do when there are times that we don't know what to do. We know because you are ultimate wisdom, you know what's best. We pray for our kids, whether they're toddlers or adolescents or they're teenagers or they're even adults. We pray that they will be in your hands. They will be they will be led and they'll be guided by you. And we pray that we are instruments. We're a channel of expressing your love to them. We know that they're not ours, they're yours. But in this season where we cannot have authority over them, help us to know how to use our authority and how to guide them, how to consult them, how to lead them so that they would make the right decision when it becomes their time. We pray that you strengthen us for those that have, husbands or wives that are always traveling. We pray that you fill in the gap for us. There will be times that there will be questions that were left unanswered. We don't always have the answers, but we pray that you will fill in the gap when we don't know what to do, and speak directly to our kids. And we pray that they will have great relationship with us, whatever they choose to do. In Jesus' name we pray.
We are very thankful for having you here.